All right. Hey, good morning. It is Wednesday, I believe. We're kind of limping into a rise and grind morning show. Thank you all for joining us this morning. It's going to be a little bit rocky as we kind of navigate through today. But good morning, Eric. Man, good to finally see you back.
Heck yeah! But you know what? Well, I got some really bad news for you.
Uh-oh.
We have to end the show. This is it. This is the very last show. We're all completely done because the Minnesota Vikings have made a move that just puts them over the top. They're going to win every Super Bowl from here on out, and there's no point in even doing the show anymore. The Minnesota Vikings signed Jeff Okudah.
You know, I thought you were going to go. I didn't know you were going to do that, so I thought you were going to go somewhere else with that. But I have to say, good luck.
It's
Jeff.
all over for us. We're done.
Did they not learn when he was our corner?
Put a fork in us. We're done. That's it. I can't wait to see him play against JMO. That's going to be a lot of fun.
It's hilarious. Yeah, especially going even Tim Patrick. I don't care who he's going up against.
I don't care who he goes up against. That's going to be fun to watch. I'm just going to watch wherever. If he is on the field when the Lions play the Vikings, I'm just going to watch wherever he's at because that's where the score is going to come from.
Sorry, I'm just doing a little audio check.
That's okay. Yeah. So had an amazing weekend down in Jackson, Michigan. I was there from Wednesday through Monday, and man, did a lot of my Lions fans come through this weekend. The very first day I walk in, and the first thing that happens is my friend Bill from the Rock World. He's one of the members of the club down there in Jackson, hands me this awesome sweatshirt. And then I get to my booth the first day, and Don O'Connor brings me a giant Lions fleece blanket. And then later in the day, Dottie brings me a blacked out real Reebok Megatron jersey. It says Megatron on the back and number 81 on the front and the back, and it's the old black jerseys, the ones that they actually wore back in the early 2000s there.
Speaking of black jerseys, did you see what came in for me?
No, I didn't.
Hold the phone. Yeah, I shared this the other day. We're gonna be rocked on now.
Hey,
we're ready to go. Got my old number there, so I'm ready to rock, man. I haven't even tried it on yet. I'm sure it fits, but
perfect.
With all the weight that I plan on losing, it probably won't fit. That's all right. It's an extra large, but I don't know. I kind of like them tighter anyway. Yeah, so, all right, let's get into today, man. We got some breaking news right away, so let's just get to it.
Sure. Yeah, let's see it.
All right, so the Vikings not pursuing Aaron Rodgers. The team has also rejected trade calls. This is where I thought you were going with this morning, talking about Jeff Okudah instead. But this is big news coming out of Minnesota that Aaron Rodgers is still unemployed. Not that he cares, I'm sure, but he won't be in the NFC North at least this season. I thought that Aaron Rodgers was going to retire this year. I didn't think that he was going to play again. I mean, there's still options for him left, in the NFL. There's still a few destinations, I guess. But let's kind of read what this article is telling us, saying that, you can cross off one of the destinations for Aaron Rodgers. List of potential landing spots is the Minnesota Vikings. They're out. And while the Vikings remain in the market for a veteran quarterback, they are not pursuing Aaron Rodgers. This is according to NFL insider Tom Pelissero. Reported this on Wednesday, this morning. So this leaves Rodgers, who is 41 years old, two serious options still left on the board: New York Giants, Pittsburgh Steelers. And Pelissero also reported that Rodgers is expected to sign soon, with the focus on those two ball clubs. They've been saying soon, or tomorrow, or the next day, or coming days, or expected for like the last week and a half. I don't think there's anything going to happen soon with Aaron Rodgers. Nothing happens soon with Aaron Rodgers. But anyway, according to the Vikings, Pelissero also reported that multiple clubs have called with interest in the second-year passer, J.J. McCarthy, wanting to make a trade. I find that interesting. I'm curious as to how much they were offering. Obviously, it has all been rejected. The Vikings are not going to move off of J.J. McCarthy. Now, what they went on to say in here too is had McCarthy maybe not suffered that meniscus injury last season, that he, potentially probably would have had a little bit more of an opportunity to play last year. But, Sam Darnold's playing well. Eric, let me get into the next screen here. What are your thoughts on the breaking news this morning that Aaron Rodgers is unemployed?
Well, Aaron Rodgers is a greedy bastard. He's making $49 million from the Jets this year. $49 million.
Just to be cut.
He's making $49 million. And I'm going to tell you something. It has been speculated that he wants north of $33 million this year from whatever club he goes to. Why not just play for $1 million? Get you to 50. You're done. There you go. You made $50 million this year. Why do you need 33? And now he's pinning the Steelers and the Giants against each other. He really wants to go to the Vikings, but he didn't offer him a deal. He didn't say, hey, I'll go for $1 million like Russ did last year. Russ was smart. He did a 1-year deal for $1 million. So then this year he can make more than $1 million.
Well, so Russ was in a similar situation. I think he made $33 million last year from walking away from that situation.
He's making it again this year. Right. Russ is making that again this year. So he's still getting paid by Denver.
So I think that if Rodgers was smart, he'd want to go to a team that, if you're already getting paid from another team, well, why not? Why not try to keep as much money in that kitty as possible so that you can continue to bring guys in, at least give yourself a winning chance, right? I mean, I think that's a smart move. Like the cap situation, I know a lot of people don't believe in it. I don't believe in the contracts as much because I feel like they're all just a big fugazi. I think that, you got the big numbers that everyone sees, but underneath it all, it's that guarantee that matters. That's the only number that they're even going to get is the guarantee. And I think for Aaron Rodgers, like, dude, if you're making $43 million, it's 43, right?
49, I think.
49, whatever the number is. Who cares? It's north of 40. Go to another team if you really want to play. Take $1 million, take the vet minimum, whatever it is, and play. You don't need to go and gouge another team's eyes out for another $30 million. It just doesn't make any sense. Maybe he's just trying to pad his wallet. He doesn't care about winning, right? He wants to just pad his wallet and leave. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I mean, is he really going to go win with the Steelers right now?
I think the Steelers are his best bet.
Probably. Is he going to go win with the Giants? Probably not.
Yeah, at least the Steelers have a couple of wide receivers. They just traded for DK Metcalf, and they seem to have a decent team. They made the playoffs last year. They started 10-1, and then kind of slid off. They were kind of like the Eagles of the year before, where they kind of backed into the playoffs and then didn't do anything in the playoffs. But I was listening to Sirius XM radio on the way home yesterday. And they were talking about the teams that spend the most in free agency and how most of the time, I think they went back 5 years or something, and all of the teams that spent the most in free agency did not win, were not productive, did not do so much greater than they did before. And then they were talking about the contracts, how these players just don't stick around. If you go back, in the last 10 years and look at the contracts of the teams that spent the most of those players only stuck around for a year or two, and then they had to cut them because they were cap casualties to get everything under their cap again, because they overspent. They basically got them on a 1 or 2 year rental, and then off they had to cut them and eat a whole bunch of dead cap. And I think that's exactly what teams like the Vikings and the Bears are setting themselves up for. Yeah, they're winning March. They're winning free agency in March. But like Brad Holmes said, he doesn't want to win in March and April. He wants to win in February.
Let's talk about that for a moment here. So there's been a lot of conversation about Brad Holmes. I've listened to a few channels. Obviously, I didn't have much to do yesterday but drive for 7 hours. So I got to tune into a few things I don't normally get to listen to. I've listened to Pride of Detroit this week. I listened to a little bit of Woodward this week. Pride of Detroit, I can't remember their names, Morgan and something. But they've been in the same boat, that I have been in, where I think the Lions are doing what's right. I think that they're doing what makes sense. And I think the more that you get away from the names that are on the roster and you look at the production, you look at the, where they're ranked, what they did last season, it just makes more and more sense as you continue to flush it all out. And then I listened to Woodward also on my way back yesterday. I don't know if it was yesterday's show or not, but talking about, it had to have been yesterday, because bring back Pat O'Connor, and all I hear is people saying, well, we need bodies. We need better bodies. We need better guys. It's like, look, free agency's over. All the big name free agents are gone, right? You have a few that are left hanging around as far as, some third, fourth, fifth tier guys, talking money-wise. Azeez Ojulari, to me, that was a big miss by Brad. I will call Brad out on that one. I think that was a big miss, but he obviously knows something more than I do, obviously, clearly. We know that. And there's some reason why he didn't bring him in. It's probably a scheme fit thing. Even though I believed in Aziz's ability as an outside linebacker, right? In a 4-3 system, I think he could have done it. And now you're looking at the same thing with the Eagles, right? They have a very similar style of defense. So I think that he could have done it. Maybe that's a miss. $4 million. How if you're going to throw a few million at Davenport, I think you can throw a few million at Azeez. Didn't happen. Is what it is. But players like Matthew Judon, these guys that are 32 years old, players like Zadarius Smith, that they're going to sit, they're going to take some time, right? It doesn't mean that Brad's not going to do something, but what I will remind everybody of is the draft. You can't knock Brad Holmes for what he's done, especially this year in free agency, when you look at the players that are on this roster, where they came from. A lot of them came from the draft. There's hardly any other teams in the NFL dealing with this situation. The Eagles are one, and look how many good quality players they just lost. They just lost their number 1 and 2 most productive defensive linemen, Milton Williams and Josh Sweat. Do you think that they're going to be able to run it back this season just by losing those two players? They're going to have to bring in some better options, right, to help supplement the loss of production. So that's what happens. When you win football games, you start to lose football players. When you start to be a really good team, that's what happens. And that's what Brad is trying to prevent. He's trying to keep the guys as long as he can, the guys that he's brought in through the draft, that they've obviously worked out in some way, shape, or form. And we'll dig into a little bit more. I know I'm a little bit off script right now, but I think that you can't put all of the weight on Brad's shoulders right now and say that he's missing in free agency and say that there's other bodies out there that we should be getting. Look at the guys that produced. And it's one of the topics this morning that we'll discuss a little bit deeper, but just remember this.
The Detroit Lions select Aiden Hutchinson, defensive end, Michigan.
So when you select Aiden Hutchinson back in 2022, and he's had the production that he's had, albeit a season that he lost last year because of his injury, that's a guy that they're trying to build around. We can all have our own opinion, disagreements on what he is as a player, what he will be as a player, but I think that there's one thing that remains the same, and that is Aiden fits everything that Brad Holmes and the Detroit Lions and Dan Campbell and Calvin Shepard that they want, right? From leadership to captain to, just being a good dude, right? Good football player, good locker room guy. One of the best leaders on the team. His production's pretty good, and he fits with the team, right? It's not Aiden all by himself, Aiden. No, it's Aiden working with the team that he has to do the things that Aiden is doing. Without this team, Aiden's not going to do those things. You can't tell me that the production that Aiden has been because Aiden has done it all himself. That's not true. It's the furthest thing from the truth. Without Aleem McNeil, or in previous seasons, without Aleem McNeil, last year without DJ Reader, Aleem McNeil, Davenport, Pascal, Levi Onwuzurike, who, he stepped into what we expected him to become last year, top 16 defensive tackle in his first real season playing. The Lions had a really good situation last year. But without the depth, without the guys surrounding him, Aiden doesn't do what he does. And I know that for a fact because I watched what he did at U of M and I watched what he did in his final season when he had a massive defense around him. And it all makes sense. So anyway, Eric, I'm going to quit talking. You haven't been around for a little bit. So
I tell you what, man.
let's run through everything that you missed real quick. And then, so you take it away on what you've missed over the last week and then whatever comments, of course, you have right there.
Oh my God. Like, so my comments on that, I can tell you exactly where I was on the day that Aiden Hutchinson was drafted. I was down in Kalamazoo at a rock show, and that was the weekend of the draft. And I had went to Meijer to get something, and my wife went in because the Lions were about to pick, and I was listening to it on Sirius XM on my radio, and it came through, and I heard the din, 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 the Lions pick Aiden Hutchinson, number 2 overall, and I was so happy when Kayvon Thibodeau went number 1. Oh God, I was so happy. And then they picked Hutch, and it was like the most excited I've ever been for any Lions draft pick ever, I believe. It was thrilling. It was so awesome. So that's one of my memories, is just sitting in my truck, doing the fist bumps in the air and, pumping my arm and getting all happy because we got Hutch. That was the first, not the first big move, but the first move that really got the old heart thumping for me that Brad Holmes did in that draft. That was so fun. So awesome. It was a great feeling. So I've been gone for a week. A whole week, the first week of free agency, and oh my God, did a lot happen while I was gone. So since March 11th, the Detroit Lions have been super active in free agency. I thought, some believe not so much, making several moves to reshape their roster. They signed cornerback DJ Reed to a 3-year, $48 million contract. So we'll start with old Mr. DJ Reed. There are so many writers and reputable people that say the Lions got the absolute best player in free agency. And that's what I like about Brad. He had his eyes set on a player. If Carlton Davis did what he did, he had a plan and he was ready to execute that plan. And I think that he tried to get Carlton Davis, couldn't get it done. So he moved really quickly to DJ Reed. DJ Reed's numbers are very similar to Carlton Davis. They're not that much different of a player, I don't believe. But
outside
DJ
size,
Reed's, yeah, DJ Reed's a little smaller, but their production, I mean, pretty darn similar. And I think he's going to be just fine playing a little bit more man. What did they say? He played 35% man snaps with the Jets.
I think it's the opposite.
Oh, was it the opposite? Less than 35%?
Like 70% man.
Oh, 70% man. Oh, okay.
I think.
So,
don't quote me here.
Well, he'll be fine. I think he'll be just fine
Let me put it this way. For some odd reason, fans have him pegged as a off man corner, right? He's not a zone corner. He's a man press corner. Brad wouldn't bring in a zone corner into a man press scheme. That just would make zero sense.
Yeah.
It would make zero sense unless you're going to put him back at safety for some reason, which that would make zero sense. So DJ Reed is a man corner, and he's been sticky his entire career.
And what a stud for $16 million a year, because now look what happened with the Texans. They just signed Stingley to a 3-year, $90 million contract, $30 million a year. That's more than what we're paying Amon-Ra, our wide receiver.
Right.
You just don't do that.
So you're right. 31% of his snaps were in man last year.
Yeah. And so I think this was a genius move. He got it done right away before all the other moves happened, before this Stingley move happened. He didn't let anyone else get him. He knew who he wanted. He went after him. He got him. And then he's out. That's it. He basically washed his hands. He's done with free agency, you know, the big splashes. And then we moved on to some of the lesser players. And I knew that's what it was going to be. And we called it before any of this really started that it was going to be probably one really good corner and then some depth pieces. And that's exactly what Brad did. And people get mad that he didn't do enough. He didn't bring in enough players. And yes, I was looking for him to get an edge. But you know what? He's got the draft. He can be patient. He can bring back someone like Zadarius Smith anytime he wants, because I'm sure Smith wants to come back. And I'm sure he doesn't have a whole bunch of offers from a whole bunch of other teams. Otherwise, he would have signed already. You know, he's on the wrong side of 30.
Yeah, when you get to that age, oftentimes what we see is these guys hold out until after the draft because, let's be honest, you're 32 years old. You're not at the top of your career. I think Z still has plenty left in the gas tank. If he's looking for a multiple year deal, obviously that's not going to happen. I think that the 1 year deal is probably what Brad is probably trying to get him, back in Detroit with, is my guess. But put it this way. After the draft, if teams that you thought needed an edge didn't grab an edge, that's probably where Z is going to end up. If the Lions don't grab an edge in the draft, Z would probably be back because he knows that he has a better chance to play and compete. Right now, our starting right defensive end, whether you like it or not, is Josh Pasco. Behind him is Davenport. Those two guys are going to duel it out in camp, hopefully with a rookie or two. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah. And, I spoke a week or two ago about how the 90s and 2000 Packers built their teams. Their fans got upset every single year because they didn't do squat in free agency. They never brought in high price free agents. And there was years I remember they didn't bring in a single free agent player from another team. They just re-signed their own and that was it. And they'd always go on and win the division every friggin' year because they drafted. They built it through the draft. They built it. They didn't buy it. So I really like that approach. That's the only thing I've ever liked about the Packers is their approach to building a team. And that's why I like some of these next moves. So defensive tackle Roy Lopez came over from the Arizona Cardinals on a 1 year deal worth $4.65 million. Now I got to watch a little bit about him, a little bit of his film. Got to see a little bit about him and his family on a video that I think Danny Rogers did with him. And then I got to see a video of him working out yesterday with his Lions gear on already. So that tells me this guy wants to play for the Lions. And
he's going to compete for sure.
Yeah, he said when the Lions came last year, they were all business and they came to play. And he really liked what he saw on the opposite sideline. So depth piece, perfect depth piece. We need it because Ali McNeil's going to be out for a while. So there you go. There's a perfect depth piece to get us through. And if he works out, maybe you don't have to take one in the first round or the second round. Maybe you can wait till the third or the fourth round to take your defensive tackle. But I do think we need to take one this year. And then linebacker Grant Stewart, he couldn't wait to be a Lion. And he came here even though he knew it was going to be a tough nut to crack. He talked about how hard it's going to be to become a starter in Detroit, but he wouldn't have it any other way. And I like those kind of players. I like the players that don't want to go to a team just because they know they'll be a starter with that team. I'd rather go to a team that pushes me to my limits. And maybe I'm not a starter, but someday I might work into one. And it's going to make me better. I want to be better as a player. That's the kind of player I want. And then next up on my list was quarterback Kyle Allen was signed to a 1 year deal.
Jared Goff's replacement, right?
Yeah, I know. And Hendon Hooker's gone. I mean, we're going to trade him on draft night. And yeah, he's just another camp arm. Come on, everybody.
He can actually play, though. I like Kyle Allen. I think that this was a super smart move. Like, he was not even on my radar, period.
No,
period.
But they're always looking, man. And you have to have someone on your practice squad who did we have last year? The one guy here, he's on my list here somewhere. We re-signed him.
I'm sorry, who?
The quarterback that was on our squad last year.
Jake Fromm?
Yeah, Jake Fromm. You know, that kid can play too. Look what he did in the preseason. He came in, didn't even know our offense, and lit it up in the preseason. So you just never know, and you always need some people in case someone gets hurt. It's going to happen one of these seasons. Jared Goff is not going to not miss a game every single year.
Oh, buddy, you can't say that stuff.
Listen, he plays a very precarious position. Every player gets hurt sometime. A finger, an ankle, a something, and a hamstring. You have to miss a game or two
Eric,
here
I think
and
we
there.
have an audio issue with you. I can no longer hear you anymore. Eric, are you there?
Yes. So Brad Holmes brought in insurance. And what better insurance than a player that's played in the league, has, you know, done his time and is looking for a backup spot, you know, and this gives Brad options. So if he does, for some weird, dumb reason, want to trade Hooker, some team is so totally desperate that they want him, let him have him. You know, if they're willing to pay out the nose for him, then let him go. But other than that, I think Hooker is our man. Why have him on your roster for 3 years just to let him go? I mean, that makes no sense. You brought him in to cultivate him and make him your backup. Leave him as your backup. We have a great backup.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at that, so I went over this a couple of times, but
yeah,
the recent trades in the free agency period, the first week would tell you what Hooker is worth or what he's not worth. Right? So was it Kenny Pickett went for a fifth? And I think it was a future fifth at that.
Yeah.
And then Geno Smith went for a third, and I think it was a future third as well. So if you think that Hendon Hooker with 0 game experience is worth more than a fifth, I don't know what you're smoking, but it must be good.
Now, I will say this. If Hendon Hooker would have been completely healthy and would have been coming out this year, he probably would have been the first or second quarterback off the board.
I would tend to agree that he would also have been almost 30 years old, too. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if he would have been 27 coming out this year, like he was when he came out, completely healthy, you know, coming off a historic season with Tennessee, and, you know, didn't they beat Alabama that year?
That was the first time they've ever beaten Alabama. Peyton Manning couldn't even get it done.
Yeah. So I'm telling you, he had some eyes on him. I had eyes on him. He was another one. I can tell you exactly where I was. I was in the shed with Bob and Rafe watching the draft, and I'm like, Hendon Hooker in the third, Hendon Hooker in the third. And they're like, shut up. We don't want that guy. He's hurt. You know, Brad's taking all these hurt guys. We don't want another hurt guy, because we had already had, you know, Jameson Williams. And they took him, and I'm just like, yeah, I told you so, told you so. And they were all pissed off at me for wanting Hendon Hooker, but I like him.
You know, I don't know. So, Eric, we didn't know each other back then, but so rockdownpodcastnetwork.com, when that started, which is obviously I still own the domain, but the blog is down, right? But I wrote tons of articles, and I went in there and projected the Lions' first 5 picks. I literally called the move from 6 to 12 in Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah.
Jack Campbell, I had him in the 2nd round, but I had him as a linebacker going to Detroit. I had no idea the Lions were going to take him at 18. I had Hendon Hooker in the 3rd. I had Brian Branch and Sam Laporta. I don't know how I did it that year, because last year I only got a few right. And this year, I don't think I'm going to get any right, to be honest with you, because this draft is so deep with defensive end and defensive tackle. But the whole point I'm saying this is that information was written and put out in the, you know, interwebs for everybody to view a month before the draft.
Yep.
And so when people say that, you know, I'm full of poop, you know what I mean? And I'm talking out of the left side of my mouth. Well, I mean, the proof is there. I mean, I spend a lot of time doing this. And now that I have, you know, you and Riley and others that are, you know, part of this team, we're able to even get a little bit deeper and more granular. It gives me more time to kind of continue doing what I'm doing. But the reason why that started, right, the reason I wanted to say that is because I started my sheet that year. And I haven't given my sheet a name, but I'm going to hopefully get it finished and put it up for people to be able, behind a paywall, for people to be able to view it. I don't want to give it up for free because someone will steal it. But if you pay for it and steal it, then that's up to you. The whole reason why I'm mentioning this is because I'm trying to get this to a point of where we can be highly accurate and more accurate than these guys that are getting paid millions of dollars that have teams upon teams of people pulling stats and analytics and everything else, and they've got people writing their shows for them every day. We don't have that. You're getting the real, the raw, the authentic, honest, transparent takes and information that we cultivate, and we also highlight some of the local writers at times. We cultivate a lot of this. It's all original. So I love what we do here because I don't want to just follow in the footsteps of somebody else. I mean, anybody could just jump on and talk about somebody else's article, but what about doing it yourself? You know, I think that it takes a little bit of a different energy to do that. So I'm glad that we do it to the degree that we're doing it, and I hope that we can get some stuff right this year. But when you look around the league, man, Daniel Jeremiah doesn't even get stuff right? Mel Kiper doesn't get stuff right. None of these guys get stuff right. It's hard because you don't know what 32 other GMs are really thinking. So anyway, I'll digress.
Yeah. And now tight end Kenny Yeboah was signed to a 1-year contract.
Yeboah.
And
it almost sounds like an Australian. Yeboah.
he's a big dude.
Yeah, I like Yeboah.
Yeah, 6'5", great big giant 260-pound tight end. Great for blocking, I guess. And
Early call on Yeboah, he beats out Shane Zielstra.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
That's my take.
All right. I have no take on the guy. I haven't really watched anything from him. I don't know. I know he played for the Jets last year. So that's 2 players we got from the Jets, Yeboah and DJ Reed. We don't play the Jets this year, so we don't get any inside information. So now let's get to who the Lions have re-signed of their own players. So starting us off, Derek Barnes was signed on a 3-year, $25.5 million deal. And I think, once again, that was a steal because linebacker deals started going nuts right after this. This is another guy we drafted, we cultivated, we brought up through our system. Who knows him better than Kelvin Shepherd? He was in his room for 4 years. Now, he started really coming on, especially late in the playoffs year before last, all the way up to the NFC Championship game, and then he got hurt in that game, I believe. And then he got hurt in the third game of the 2024 season and was out for the season. That was a MCL, PCL, something or other. Had to have surgery and missed a whole bunch of time. But I really loved the trajectory that he was on prior to that. Like being at that Tampa game, the divisional round in Ford Field, and watching him get his first NFL interception to seal the game was incredible. And that was kind of the moment I knew that, hey man, he's starting to get it. He's really starting to come on as a linebacker. And he is that Sam linebacker that the Lions have been trying to get, the guy that can play a little bit of edge, play on the outside, stick with the tight end, stick with a wide receiver now and then. Not the fastest dude on earth, but he's that multi-tool, you know, and we don't have very many multi-tools. So unless we get somebody like Jihad Campbell this year, I think Derek Barnes is going to be the guy playing that role.
So Derek Barnes, you guys know that he was not real high on my list. I wanted a more active coverage style of a linebacker that is more proven. But I will say the more I dig into Derek Barnes, the more I understand his trajectory. I mean, when he came in really raw, I mean, he couldn't cover anything. I mean, he was like a special teams guy. But he was not projecting to me to be a linebacker. It took him 3 seasons, right, to really start to come alive. And then last season, his best season by far, getting off to the start that he did, and then it ended abruptly. But I think that there's more to Derek Barnes than there's not, if that makes sense. I think that he's really been growing at a pretty fast pace, and I think that Calvin Shepard is largely responsible for this, being able to get into the mind of Derek Barnes, and obviously Derek and his work ethic too. I think that there's, nothing more that really needs to be said there. The guy works his ass off, and look, I think that he's going to have a good season. I do. I think that you surround him with the right guys. What's really going to help Derek Barnes grow is the fact that this DB room behind him is top tier. Like, these guys are going to give him enough coverage and be able to back him up. I hope that, Kirby is not out in no man's land all the time. He needs to be up a little bit closer, in my opinion, for some of these snaps to really help these linebackers in coverage. Because if we're not going to help back up these guys and they're constantly in no man's land in the safety room, you're going to constantly see 10, 12, yard passes at the linebackers. I think Alex does a good job in coverage. Jack, he's got a long way to go. But Derek, I think, is going to make another big step forward. The problem is, for me, when you come back from an injury like this, I always call it a throwaway season. Like, anyone that's coming back from a major injury, their first season back is usually trash. That's the only thing that has me a little bit concerned about this roster. Aiden's coming back from a major injury. Ali McNeil's coming back from a major injury. Derek Barnes is coming back from a major injury. Who am I forgetting?
Rodrigo.
Who?
Rodrigo,
Mekhi Wingo. That's the only concern that I have. Now, if Brad goes out and supplements through the draft and brings in some really high quality, some high quality rookies that can hit the field in year one, I'm less concerned. But these are still rookies. All right, they're still rookies. I don't care if you're selected number 1 overall, you're still a rookie. And you still have to adjust. How many rookies last season really rose up to rose up in their first year to even be mentioned, in the top 20 or the top 32 of starters at their position? Not many. It takes a very special athlete to do that. Jared Verse did that last season. I expected him to do it. Braden Fisk was one of the best last season. Kobe Turner's been great. So it can happen, right? It absolutely can happen. Where are you right now? How many more did you have to go through?
Quite a few. So up next is Levi Onwuzurike. He got a 1-year, $5.5 million deal. And Levi, I think, was the steal of all of the free agents of our own that we got back. I think he could have got double that going somewhere else. But I think he really wanted to come back and finish what he started. He finally had one good season after all the back problems, after all the trouble, after everything he's done, all this rehab and surgery and everything he's been through with the Lions. He finally gets to come home and prove that he can do it here. And I think if he proves it here after one season, I think we will re-sign him for a much better deal than $5.5 million.
Let me just throw something up on the screen.
Sure.
You keep talking, but I want to throw something up about Levi.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I'm less concerned about, I'm concerned about his injury history, right? I'm concerned about his overall health moving forward, because back injuries suck and anything can happen on any given day. All it takes is the wrong step, getting hit wrong, tying your freaking shoes, to be honest with you. If you're dealing with, spasms and that, and you bend over and you tie your shoes, my back has gone out numerous times from that.
Yeah. But no matter what, every single NFL player is going to get injured at some point. It's just, how do you deal with it? How do you recover from it? And how do you move forward? That's it with injuries. Some players, like, I hate to call them out, but who's the safety we just let go?
Efetu
Melifonwu.
Yep.
Broke his finger and refused to play. Come on, dude. There's been NFL players that snapped their finger or cut his finger off and got back in the game. Literally, it's a pain thing. If you can deal with it, get back in. that's your hand. That's not your foot. That's not your leg. You don't need
It's a
it to
finger,
run.
man. You wrap it up, you tape it together, and you go. So I just
put
threw
on a
this. I
glove.
just threw this up on the screen here. This is what I want people to understand about Levi Onwuzurike. Milton Williams led defensive tackles last year in pressure rate, 12.5%. Tershawn Wharton, 8.2%. Javon Kinlaw, 6.9%. Levi, 9.7%.
Yep.
And I'm glad that I keep hearing some things on other shows, other podcasts, or even straight from NFL analysts where they talk about, I heard it yesterday. They mentioned the word linkage, right? You guys have heard me talk about this, but before I get to that, look at the APY difference here. Onwuzurike, $5.5 million. All the rest of these guys, Levi was better than everyone but Milton Williams, and they're making triple, if not quadruple, the amount of money that Levi is.
And
so that tells you how important he is to this team and how smart Brad is right now to bring a guy back that had as much of an effect on this defense as he did. Now you have Aiden coming back. You're going to tell me that Levi's not going to get better? Of course he's going to get better. When you have that next to you, and then you got Josh Paschal, hopefully healthy all season, and DJ Reader. I just mentioned throwaway season. DJ Reader had a good year last year. Not great, but he also came back from a serious quad injury. What do you think he's going to do in year 2 now that he's fully healthy, full off season, ready to rock and roll without an injury? I'm expecting a huge level up out of DJ Reader. So linkage, you guys hear me talk about it all the time, right? The offensive line starts at the center, right? Imagine a chain link, just a chain, chain linkage, right? Just a chain. And every player along that offensive line represents, a foot of chain, whatever, 3 feet of chain. You break that center link at the center. Well, you can't put the chain back together, right? So you want to cut the head off a snake, right? And then it can't do anything to you anymore. So if you cut the center link of that chain, now your defense has an opportunity to start penetrating gaps. If they can stay together and that chain stays together, and you cut the end off a chain at the defensive end position, it doesn't do you any good because you still have all 4 or 5 guys able to move up and down the line, right? They're able to shield, they're able to block, they're able to keep guys, at bay. But if you break that chain and you start to separate these guys, now you can start to penetrate the gaps. I heard someone mention it last night. I can't remember where it came from, but I'm like, there's the aha moment that I'm not the only guy out here talking about this. I mean, it's something that I taught at a very elementary level of, defensive line work and how to get your defensive line back into the backfield through the center, right? Through the center. All right. I'll digress. Go ahead.
All right. For a split second, everybody get out, hit that like button. We only need a few more to get ads turned off. If you're not subscribed yet to this channel, you need to. We're almost to 9,000. We need some more people subscribing to this channel. When we hit 9,000, Will's going to give away some mini helmets and some really cool stuff. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. All right. Up next is Marcus Davenport, the one that I called there.
Yes.
So Marcus Davenport on a 1-year, $4.75 million deal, but it's basically just a vet minimum with a bunch of incentives. So just like last year's contract that we had with Davenport, we're not paying very much for him. He has to get so many sacks and play in so many games with so many snaps. Otherwise, he doesn't make $4.75 million. So this is insurance against if he gets injured again. We're only on the hook for like 1.2, 1.3 million.
175.
Like yeah, 175. It's not that bad. Nice and cheap. So
it's barely vet minimum.
Yeah, under $2 million. What a steal. Because if he works out, my God, you have your can crusher. And that's what I liked about him. And up next, one of my favorite players, and I am so glad we got him back. This is the one that I was the highest on us trying to get back, and that is Mr. Tim Patrick. He posted a picture of his t-shirt that said, "I only want to work for the Detroit Lions," and we got him for a deal worth up to $4 million, and that's another incentive-laden contract. Then we brought back Dan Skipper for 1 year, which I'm fine with, but I'm hoping that Giovani Manu either takes a big giant step forward towards being a guard or that swing tackle position and just needs one more year of seasoning, and then he takes over the Dan Skipper role. So this may be Dan Skipper's last year in a Detroit Lions uniform.
Yeah, you've got to remember last year it was the first time he made the 53. I think that he's going to have an uphill battle this year,
Yes.
especially given the fact that he's going to have some big time competition.
Yeah, and if Gio's ready to go, he might not make the team. Gio might be the swing tackle this year. And watching all those off-season videos of Giovani Manu working out, oh my God, that guy's a beast. Oh, he just got to get it together. And I love his footwork. It looks so much better. So much better. All right. And then yesterday we re-signed Craig Reynolds for a 1-year deal with no terms yet. And then they tendered exclusive right contracts to Trevor Nowaski, offensive lineman Michael Neese, and other re-signings included cornerback Maurice Norris, offensive lineman Netane Muti, and then linebacker Anthony Pittman, Ezekiel Turner, and then defensive lineman Miles Adams, defensive end Mitchell Agood, which I really like that one, tight end Shane Zielstra yesterday, and then finally Pat O'Connor. And Pat O'Connor was one that I really wanted back. I loved what he did towards the end of the season. I think it took him a little time to acclimate and get into our system, but once he did and figured it out, he started doing really well. I liked that I heard his name on a bunch of plays. He was in on a bunch of tackles. He was almost there for some. He might have got one. What did he get? 1 sack?
Pat O'Connor, I don't know right off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think he might have got 1 sack, or he was in on one or half a sack or whatever. But I know he was right there a bunch of times. And I liked seeing him. He seemed to be everywhere on the field and in the right place at the right time. So I really liked him. He's a veteran. He's not some rookie. And he's got a good head on his shoulders, big body. I really liked him. My kind of player. And then in terms of departures, the Lions released veteran edge rusher Zadarius Smith, who I think could come back possibly. But for us to get Zadarius back, I think he's going to have to come back on a cheaper contract, a 1-year contract. And it might be after the draft, might be going into training camp. If he doesn't sign with someone else, maybe then we bring him back in to give some competition to the new 1 or 2 edge players that we draft in this draft. And then we let go of linebacker Jalen Reeves-Maben. And I was kind of bummed to see him go just because he's such a utility knife, but I know he was kind of expensive. So there's another one where it's the money. That's a cap casualty hit right there. Cornerback Carlton Davis, he signed with the New England Patriots. Offensive guard Kevin Zeitler joined the Tennessee Titans for $9 million a year. And I just don't think Brad could go that high. And I don't think there was any way where we were going to retain Zeitler anyway, because he's from Tennessee. That's where he lives. And he wanted to be home. And then cornerback Kendall Vildor, see you later, buddy. Signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then other players who signed elsewhere included wide receiver Maurice Alexander with the Chicago Bears, tight end James Mitchell with the Carolina Panthers, and safety Ife Melifonwu with the Miami Dolphins. The Lions did not tender restricted free agent contracts to offensive guards Coyote Awasika and offensive lineman Connor Galvin, making them unrestricted free agents. I don't think you'll see either one of them back this year. So we're going to have some new depth on the back end of the offensive line and the defensive line this year, you know, because we got Roy Lopez coming in. We're going to have a new backup linebacker in Grant Stewart. He does a lot of special teams. I like the way Brad is putting this together. It's not flashy. It's not fancy. We are not winning March. We're not winning free agency. And like I saw writer.
Hold on. Did you just say we're not winning free agency?
Yeah, I don't want to win free agency. I don't want to.
I think we're definitely winning free agency. We're just not winning the headlines, I think is what you mean.
Yes. I don't want to win headlines in March. Listen, there was a writer put out a list with letter grades for all the teams and how they did in free agency. You know, the Vikings got an A+. The Bears got an A-. The Lions got a C. Keep giving us C's. Give us a D, E, and F. I don't care. Give us those bad grades. Just like our draft with Jahmyr Gibbs got E's and F's and D's and C-. Yeah, just keep grading us crappy and see what happens. Brad knows what he's doing.
Yeah. 1 second here. I got some good news for everybody.
All right. What's going on?
Well, it's just that we just landed another sponsor.
Right on.
And I'll bring more information soon, but this one's a big one. It's big because it's going to help so many people with their daily lives, and I can't say too much just yet, but I'm super excited about all the sponsors that we have, of course. But this one I think is going to be a game changer, and I think it's going to help a lot of people. So more info coming soon, but they know who they are. So if they're listening this morning, I appreciate you. Just responded to the email.
Right on.
Samples will be available, and there's another one that I'm working on too that hopefully we can get locked up this week too. But anyway, so you were talking about DJ Reed and Carlton Davis earlier. So let me get into their numbers here. Wow, that looks terrible. Let me fix that real quick.
But that was basically my thoughts on everybody that we got, everybody that we released. Just a little overview of everything.
Yeah. Look, I think the Lions are definitely winning free agency right now. I firmly believe that.
You know, but all these pundits, they think whoever spends the most money gets the best grade because they got the most players and the most this and that. Like I was saying earlier, I can guarantee you take the top 5 players that the Vikings signed and the Bears signed in free agency. Out of those 5 players, I'm going to say none of them plays more than 3 years for that team.
All right. So we were talking about DJ Reed and the difference between DJ Reed and Carlton Davis. Now, last season, DJ Reed finished with an overall 70.7, but what you will notice about DJ Reed is he has really never been graded lower than that. Last year, he had a 71.8 pass rush grade, 71.8 run defense grade, 70.1 coverage grade. He ranked 47th out of 222 cornerbacks. So when you look at starting corners in the league, you have 64. Hey, our date's wrong. You pretty much have 64 starting corners, right? You have one on each side. You have 32 teams. So he was ranked as a top 43 overall, top 47 in coverage. Carlton last season was just a little bit better. And I apologize if you can't see this the small writing, but Carlton was ranked as a 29th overall corner last year and 38th in coverage. Now, pass rush grade, I really could care less about that, especially for a corner. Now, let's dive into what I consider the major difference here is DJ Reed and how many games that he played in last year. I think he played in all of them, 880 total snaps. Carlton Davis, 697. So the difference for me is, you know, Carlton obviously lost, 6 games last year, but DJ Reed didn't. So his numbers are more true when you look at the overall grade. It's really difficult to maintain that level, of eliteness, in my opinion, year after year after year, but a whole season. Look what he did in 2023. 79.5 coverage grade. It was about the 24th in 2023. Obviously, there was a lot of really good corners in 23. If he was 24th at 79.5. And overall, he was the 24th. But his grades, I mean, they're staying the same, right? How about 22? All right, run defense grade, terrible that year. But his overall grade, again, top 32 in the league. Coverage grade, top 16 in the league. How about 21? Even better in run defense. So what he did in 21 to 22, that's the anomaly, right? That's the exception, not the rule. He just had a bad year in 22, and that could be for a multitude of things, which more than likely is the defense that he was on. But his coverage grade, 75.4, top 30 again. Overall, he was a top 14 corner in 2021. His grades have stayed the same.
Has he always been a Jet?
No.
Okay.
No, I forgot where he started. Might have been the Seahawks.
We hit 75 likes. Thank you, guys.
All right, we'll get ads turned off here in just 1 sec. So let's go back to 21 for Carlton Davis, which that would have been the Super Bowl year, right? They won the Super Bowl that year in Tampa. No, I'm sorry. That was 2020, wasn't it? Tampa won it in 20, right?
20 or 21?
Well, 21 had to be the Rams.
Yeah, 21 was the Rams. So it was 2020.
It was 2020.
So
his Super Bowl year, he was a top 58 corner. He was top 7 against the run, top 52 overall in a Super Bowl season. And he was their lead corner. 21 stayed pretty much the same, right? High 60s. He missed a lot of time, though. Let's see, 21. I hate how I have to change both of these to get their snaps and all that. So about the same amount of snaps. So he missed probably 5-6 games in 2021. 2022, played 800 snaps. That could have been close to a full season, but I don't think he's ever played a full season. Coverage grade about the same, mid 60s. 23. Oh, had a drop-off year in 23. So just before he became a Detroit Lion, he had a drop-off year. And he played 715 snaps. So probably, 14 games that year maybe. It's a guess. Probably 14, 13 games. And then in 24 with the Lions. 697 snaps. We know that he missed, 6 games. But really good grades, right? There's no difference to me between what DJ Reed is doing and what Carlton is doing from a grade perspective. The difference is for me, though, DJ Reed has been doing it consistently, year in, year out, staying on the field. So when you look at what the Lions spent for DJ Reed in 2024 or 25, 26, and 27, that's $16 million a year. His guarantee was what, $16 million, I think?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all it was it?
Yeah.
Are we accurate on that?
I'm pretty sure he was 16 last year.
No, this year. What is DJ Reed's guarantee?
Oh, DJ Reed's, 16.5.
No, 32.
Oh, okay.
32 million. So he's basically guaranteed about 10.75 million a year. It's not bad. You didn't spend 20 million on Carlton Davis. There was no need to. Yeah, he's a little bit shorter, and I failed to, utilize my own, way of thinking and grading players or evaluating players when they're, a little bit shorter. I say they have to be proven, right? You don't want to take a player that's short in the draft. You bring in a player that maybe doesn't meet the prototypical size after they've been in the NFL and they've proven themselves. Tyrann Mathieu was one of them, right? Mathieu, really, really small safety, and ends up being one of the better safeties in the league. But no one really wanted to go after the guy, and then he proved himself. He's been one of the best in the league since. Same thing with DJ Reed. He's proven himself. And like he said at the press conference, he constantly feels like he has to prove himself. I think he said something like, was I ranked the number 1 corner last year? Something like that. And he said, so yeah, I'm still proving myself then. Which I love that attitude. You're not resting on your laurels. You're not settling on having a good season. He wants to continue to improve. And I think that he said it best at his press conference, which I can't even repeat everything he said because it was so good. Let me get these ads off for you guys. All right, there you go. Thank you. And appreciate you guys taking care of the likes this morning. Yeah, please subscribe. Look, every 100 subscribers, we're giving away mini helmets. I'm trying to get rid of the 2024 stock of mini helmets. You still got a full box here. So between now and the draft, we need to get to 10,000. Like that's the only goal. I just need to get to 10,000 and then I'm good. I don't really care what happens after that point. Obviously, I would love to have more subscribers, but 10,000, there's a reason for it. And that's so that we can do some things in YouTube that they don't allow you to do until you hit 10K. So once we get to 10K, we'll be swimming. I really wanted to talk about a couple of things this morning. I know you had a top 10 or whatever it was available edge rusher, or not edge rushers, but top 10 free agents. Let me just run through the full list of transactions. I know that you were going through it. Let me just kind of give you guys an up-to-date what has happened. So yesterday, obviously news broke that Lions brought in tight end Shane Zielstra, Pat O'Connor, Craig Reynolds, all one-year contracts. The day before, March 17th, they brought back Mitchell Lagoud and Dan Skipper, one-year contracts suspected. March 14th, so last Friday, it was Tim Patrick and Kenny Yeboah to one-year deals. Not sure on Tim Patrick, but I think that it is a one-year deal. And then obviously on the 13th was Kyle Allen, quarterback. March 12th, first day free agency, was Roy Lopez, DJ Reed, Grant Stewart, and then Levi Onwuzurike. And then before that on March 8th, the Friday before, you had Anthony Pittman, Zeke Turner, Marcus Davenport back on one-year deals. So Brad is the king of one-year deals, right? He just is. I mean, a lot of teams employ the one-year contract for a reason. These to me are more of like little contender deals because this is a team that is contending. I've been saying it, ever since free agency started that, man, if we can run it back with the same squad, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't? And that's why I put up those stats of Levi, because we're not just bringing Levi back on a small one-year deal to have him prove himself again. Yeah, we're hoping he can follow up what he did last year and do it again this year. I think he's going to be better. I think he's definitely going to be better with the level of talent that is around him. A team that won 15 games, I know nobody cares about anymore because we exited early in the first playoff game. But tell me another team that is this deep. Tell me another team that was able to witness their depth for more than 6 games last year of playing time. There's no other team that was tested like this. There's plenty of teams that had a lot of injuries, but not to just one side of the football. So now that the Lions have brought back all of this depth, there will be a couple of signings. There will be some draft picks that should obviously catapult over top some of these depth pieces. These guys still have to fight it all in camp, right? They have to fight it out in camp. Right now, you've got metal on metal, and that's going to sharpen itself in training camp. These guys are ready to rock and roll. You mentioned Giovani Manu, and we saw the video of him working out. He looks great. I mean, he looks like he's in phenomenal shape. He's obviously doing some different things to help with his balance. That weight thing that was on his chest and his stomach, obviously that's doing a lot of core. But one of the things that I was reading was it kind of helps him to keep his pad level low. So that was an interesting way to exercise, right? To work on pad level. I'm sure that's not the entirety of that exercise. It's obviously a lot of core training, but it does help him, with weight on his shoulders and his back, obviously through his stomach, it's coming off the front of him to help keep his pad level low. I wouldn't be surprised if Gio somehow gets thrown in at guard. I know he's massive, and playing guard is probably not the right move. I think that swing tackle would be the best move for him to get some playing time. But I guess I'm a little bit concerned with Graham Glasgow at this point. So I want to walk through where do the Lions really need some work right now. We've gotten through, the major part of free agency. What is this team up against? And so what's left to address, really? So if the season began tomorrow, here, matter of fact, let me do this. Okay, so free agency for the Detroit Lions. Where do they need to address, some issues still? What do they have left to work on? That's the topic right now. And I think that for them, if the season, them being the Lions, if the season began tomorrow, many think that the Lions have Marcus Davenport as the starting right defensive end opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. And that Graham Glasgow is the starting left guard and Mahogany is a starting right guard. If it started tomorrow, that's what a lot of the fan base believes. Some of the writers, they believe in the same thing. I feel a little bit differently. I feel like those are some positions that are still going to get addressed here soon. I think Mahogany has definitely earned the opportunity to get the first snaps with the first team at either right or left guard. But I think it would make more sense for Graham Glasgow. So if we start with the guard position, and as we're kind of gearing up towards this season to start, right, just with OTAs, that maybe the focus shifts a little bit to the offensive line versus the edge as far as more of the critical need right now. So guard position or the situation, Kevin Zeitler's gone. Obviously, he's headed to Tennessee. That's a huge loss. So if the Lions are looking to Graham Glasgow and this up-and-comer Christian Mahogany to fill that void, are both of them anchored now as starters? I don't think so just yet. I think that Graham is going to have a first shot, but I think that position is kind of up for grabs. Like, he's going to have to fight for it. His contract's not big, right? So even if they walked away from him, cut him post-June 1, which I don't think would happen, it's not like they're going to lose a ton of money. I think it would be dumb to do, but I don't think it's going to happen. So Mahogany, he was regarded as an NFL-ready prospect before the draft last season. Surprisingly, he slipped into the 6th round. Many said that he had one leg longer than the other, that they found out during the medical portion of the combine, and that's what everyone passed on him for. Now, during his limited spot starts last year, I think he played 80 snaps-ish. He really showcased the potential to be a starting guard in this league. Now, he battled a wicked illness last year. I think it was mono that kind of kept him out of training camp, the preseason. He was on the NFI list for several weeks into the season, and then he started to regain his strength, started to get some opportunity. And if he continues to develop, I think the Mahogany could be one of Brad Holmes' draft gems. Like, this guy, I mean, he could end up becoming a really good guard in this league. So I'm really high on what his ceiling is. I think that he has a high ceiling, and I think that he proved last year that his floor is a little bit higher than what some people expected. Now, in contrast, you have Graham Glasgow. He's an aging vet. In 2023, I mean, he was exceptional, playing across all three positions, left, right guard, and center, when Frank Ragnow went down. He had a challenging season last year. Not the greatest grades. He ranked 7th, though, among guards in pressures, which isn't terrible. Is that 7th worst or 7th best, though, right? He had 36 pressures last year. Glasgow was kind of nicked up most of the season. It seemed like he had these little injuries that were bugging him throughout the year. He did end up on the injury report a few times. Injuries, we don't know how extensive they really were, but it seems something was affecting his performance last year. I think that we can all agree that he dipped off in a bad way last year. Wasn't good. And as the season wore on, I think it just got worse and worse and worse, especially in the postseason where he had a PFF grade of 10.2. I've never seen that. 10. Like, that's not great, dude. It's not good at all. So where does he go this year? I think that Glasgow definitely needs to elevate his game to retain a starting role. I think he's going to be fighting for it. A potential shift back to right guard makes more sense to me, though. I think that he played his best football in Detroit between Frank and Panay. I think that Taylor Decker is partly responsible for the let-off that Graham Glasgow had last year. I think that the communication between them, something was off. It's like, these guys, when they're married up to each other, left guard, left tackle, right guard, right tackle, they almost have to do a dance, right? It's a choreographed dance that they do together. They feed off each other, and they need each other to be in this same mindset as to what's going to happen on any specific play. I just felt their communication was bad. I think that Graham did better with Panay on his right and Graham on his left. So I would rather see Graham start on the right side, Mahogany on the left side. But the Lions still may explore free agency for some additional competition. We do know that Brad Holmes likes to bring guys in after cut day. And he might even bring someone in that gets cut early in camp next year. And we still have Jamarco Jones. Now, Jamarco, to me, last year showed me that he still has some vicious intent. Like that guy I felt was going to be on the line last year, and he wasn't. He wasn't going to beat out Kevin Zeitler, but when he came in, limited times that he did, and especially in preseason, man, he held his own. I think that Jamarco Jones has a real opportunity to win a spot, and it could be over Graham Glasgow. So let's pay attention to that, this summer in training camp. Eric, what are your thoughts right now on the offensive line when you look at the potentials and the things that I'm discussing right now?
Yeah, I'm thinking for sure we have to figure out the Graham Glasgow situation, and I'm sure that's something that they have really looked at, and I'm wondering, does Gio make sense at guard if we need him, especially if, say, something happens to Frank and there's an injury and we need Graham Glasgow to play center, then who's going to play that other guard spot? So that might be where Gio comes in. And then you have Dan Skipper as your swing tackle. You still have your other two tackles. So that might be what they're looking at. Cross-training Gio as a guard. They could surprise us all and cross-train him at center. I have no clue.
He probably won't be a center. He's too big.
Yeah, well, the biggest center in the NFL. You never know. We'll start something new. But they could throw any curveball in the world at us. I wouldn't know. I'm not on the team. I don't know. But if I had to guess, I would say you move Graham back to right guard because that is where he excelled. That is where he did much better than left guard last year. Something happened last year. I don't know. He seemed kind of defeated last year, even when I talked to him, because I got to talk to him for a couple minutes, got his autograph and stuff, and he just seemed wiped out of energy. He didn't have the spunk that everyone else had when I was talking to him. He just seemed really down, like something was on his shoulders. So I don't know. Maybe something was bugging him last year. Maybe he had something going on at home. Maybe just having Taylor Decker over there not being up to snuff was enough to, when you got to do two person's job, makes it a little bit harder.
I do know this. Graham is a little bit reserved. So I think when he's around people, he's a little bit more reserved. I'm sure that's all that was. Dealing with fans is not easy. And I think that he probably was just a little bit more reserved in just how he was acting.
And then I was watching him when he came off the field, like at halftime, and then at the end of the game, he just looked like he had left everything on the field. Like he had nothing left, and everybody else was coming out like, "Hey, let's go to overtime. I'm ready to go," and he didn't look that way.
Yeah, there were some times last year that it definitely seemed like he was up against something.
Yeah, it was just my personal opinion, just my personal viewing and watching, being there at the game. That's what I saw with my eyes.
So, Bob W., your question here in the chat is, we have Graham, we have Kingsley, and Nice, I think are all on the roster right now, signed to futures, etc. So I think that's your center backups right now. Obviously, I think Graham is your number one backup at center, but
yeah,
you can only put him in so many positions, right? If you need him at guard, you need him at guard. I'm interested in this Manu to guard option. Like, is it even potential? Is he too big? Maybe. Is he fast enough to play tackle? Yes. But would he just be an absolute road grader? I would love to see them insert Manu in our goal line situations. Why wouldn't you want, a guy as big as he is to go in there and push the line, right? You could run anybody behind him and Panay, all day. So they got to get him active this year. They have to. But I think that Manu's going to have a really good spring. I'm excited to see, what OTAs bring for him. He's obviously working his tail off before they even get that far. And
camp and preseason are going to be awesome.
Yes, for sure. especially with some added benefits, hopefully, that be able to have some more access. All right, so next is the edge position. I know this is the most talked about position for the Lions, and or lack thereof, right, of action this year. Now, the Lions' decision to re-sign Marcus Davenport won over the fan base without a doubt. Everyone was ecstatic about that pick. No, they were not. But when healthy, I don't think that you can discount the fact that Davenport has really demonstrated some solid skill in both pass rushing, run defense. However, his ability has been a concern with health, right, and staying on the field. He has played in only 6 games in the past 2 seasons. Now, last season was a freak injury. This was not Davenport running around and then he pulls up lame with a hamstring or an Achilles or an ACL or concussions or something like that, right? Which you can't blame him for anything. You really can't. Players get hurt. It's part of the game. I will die on my own hill with this whole Paris Johnson intentionally chopped and pulled this guy's tricep off. Like you can't deny the tape. It's there. Now, a chop move is normal. I just think the way that it was done was not. So he was injured last year, didn't make a lot of fans happy, but when he was in, go watch his tape. I promise you, you're going to see a guy that can set the edge, that is a cerebral football player. He's always got his eyes on the football. He knows where the football is going. He doesn't usually get beat. And, man, he was terrorizing Paris Johnson. And I think that that's why that whole thing went down. Paris just had enough. You know, he just had enough, and he didn't know what else to do because he couldn't win. He couldn't beat Davenport unless he did something which I consider to be a little frothy. So his availability has been a concern. But I think that his ability on the field, look, there's nobody better, in my opinion, right now at that price point with his experience level that can set the edge. It's not like the Lions need 2 NASCARs. You don't need that, right? The defensive end position is not a 3-4 outside linebacker position. I hope that people understand the difference between pass rushers as a defensive end and as an outside linebacker in a 3-4 scheme. 2 totally different style of football player. Body size, height, weight, everything is different. You can't take Aiden and go put him in a 3-4 and as an outside linebacker. It would never work. Too tall, too slow, too lanky. He'd get beat all day. But you can put him up on a wide 9. You can put him up, on the outside of the line, on the offsetting, outside shoulder of the tackle. You can do that. You can rotate him on the inside of the line. But you put him as an outside linebacker in a 3-4 scheme, Aiden will get killed all day. So there's a big difference here. It's not like, like Myles Garrett. You don't generally ever see 2 Myles Garretts on a team. There's not one team out there that has that. The Texans are probably the closest to having, 2 top flight defensive ends, but they also play in a different style of a defense. But I think that the hope for this year for Davenport is obviously the improved durability. Look, if he gets 8 games in this year, that's a win. That's a big win. Just based on his salary alone. I think he'll obviously have more, and I think the Lions would be smart to rotate more often at that position. You need to give these guys a breath, especially if they're blitzing a lot. Because the more you blitz, the less ability, right, these guys are going to have in the fourth quarter. And I think that was a big knock last year for me on Aaron Glenn, blitzing way too much. You're gassing these guys out, and then you have the potential to lose in the fourth quarter because you guys just don't have it. I don't care how much you train. Anyone that blitzes that much is going to be gassed. But if you're setting the edge, and I'm not saying do the bare minimum, but you're kind of doing the bare minimum if you're just kind of setting the edge, playing contain, that obviously takes a lot less resources off your body. So for this year, I would love to see them utilize Davenport in a way as not a starter, as a really good backup with rotation with Josh Paschal. Now, if they bring in a rookie, obviously that rookie might earn some snaps here. That's the goal. That's the hope. Now, the historical trend would suggest otherwise with Davenport, that, maybe there's some caution about his future on the opposite side of Aiden Hutchinson. But again, I want to make sure that I emphasize Davenport is not supposed to be a copy of Aiden. Davenport is supposed to be the can crusher, right? The edge setter. Aiden is the guy that is constantly trying to get after the quarterback. But he also needs to be able to set the edge and contain. Now, Davenport's returned, I think, coupled with the release of Zadarius Smith, really sent some shockwaves through the fan base. But I think you guys all understand. We understand. Paying $16 million for a 32-year-old Zadarius Smith never was going to happen. Why would you pay $16 million for Smith when you look at some of the contracts that were just handed out? Would have made no sense at all. Like, you could have had who just signed that $18 million deal? Was it Bosa that signed 16 or 12 million or something like that? Might have been. Not that I wanted Bosa, because I think Bosa's right in the same area as Davenport, with injury concerns and not playing and production levels. He's still a hell of a football player, but you have to put those two peas in a pod because he's missed a lot of games. He's missed a lot of time. So I think that the Lions are not done here. I think that Davenport should serve as a rotational player. It will help him stay healthier throughout the season. I think that they were obviously going to seek to replicate Smith's production through free agency, which Smith had, four sacks with the Lions last year in, 7 games, 8 games, something like that. I think that there's plenty of edge rushers in this draft. I think we've spoken about that a lot, that there's plenty that they can get in the first and the second round that can help this team win. There's still a few out there, right? You've got Von Miller, Matthew Judon, Zadarius Smith, if he wants to come back for a cheaper option. Those players could still help this team in the future. But I don't think that they're going to sign now. I don't think they're going to sign before the draft. They'll probably sign sometime after training camp, most likely. I think that when you have additional needs on this team, the Lions are really smart to do what they just did. They brought Davenport back. They also have Josh Paschal. The edge is fairly set, but we still need a couple of good rotational guys. And there's some guys that are going to battle it out in camp. Matter of fact, when you look at the roster right now, you've got Aiden. John Kaminsky's a free agent. You still have Josh Paschal, Marcus Davenport. Miles Adams is listed as a defensive end, but I think he's more interior. Pat O'Connor's listed as a defensive end. I think he played more interior last year, but he can also play on the outside. We did bring back Mitchell Agood, right? And then El-Quadin Muhammad, I don't think we've re-signed yet. So there's still options. There's still options. And then lastly, I think the Lions are looking for some safety help, right? You let Efetu Melifonwu go. Brandon, who do we have back there? We don't have Brandon Joseph anymore, do we?
No.
I don't think we do. No.
No.
But we do have Lauren Strickland, Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, Eric Hallett, and Morris Norris at safety. I think that the safety room still needs an upgrade behind Brian and Kirby. So I think that the Lions are probably looking for either another veteran addition here or safety in the draft. I think safety in the draft is likely for this team this year because they need to backfill what they're about to do with Kirby, and then eventually Brian Branch is going to need an extension. So they're going to have to get cheap, but they're going to have to find some really good guys in the draft that can play like a number one as a rotational guy, someone that maybe not going to see the field a whole lot. And then you've got, let's see, I think the team did very well retaining Ali McNeil last year, then signed Roy Lopez. I think the defensive tackle position with Reeder, Onzariki, I think it's fairly set, but they're going to bring somebody in the draft. So if you look at the additional needs, in my opinion, heading into the draft and the rest of free agency, I think the guard's going to be addressed without a doubt. I think that if the Lions can somehow pluck a guard out of this draft, they're going to do it. Edge, they're definitely going to pluck an edge out of this draft. Some people have been talking about, back-to-back position, edge here. I think the Lions would more so grab an edge and a defensive tackle. I don't think they'll double down on edge. I think they'll grab an edge and a defensive tackle. Again, you're in that same position where if you have 3 really great edge rushers, and 2 of them you take out of the draft this year, and both of them are taken early. Well, how are they going to fit the field? How are they all going to get enough snaps? So I think that taking 1 this year and a defensive tackle would make more sense because you have DJ Reader on his final year. You just signed Aleem McNeil, and you don't know what's going to happen with Levi Onwuzurike. You got a bunch of 1-year deals, and those have to be backfilled with rookies. I'm not going to give away my nuggets, but on how I evaluate the roster and what I think makes the most sense. I will share some of it when we get into more of the mock draft stuff, and in the final week heading into the draft is when I kind of release everything, because then at that point nobody can really steal it, right? It's out there. So that's my thoughts on what's going on right now. Safety, edge, defensive tackle, and guard, I think, are the 4 top positions that the Lions are still looking to make some moves at between free agency and the draft coming up. Eric, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, you got me thinking. So I saw this mock draft the other day, and it was from Sam Monson, I think over at 33rd Team. And they had the Detroit Lions take a safety at number 28, Malachi Starks. But then on the very next pick, another safety went, and it was Nick Emenwari.
What pick number was Nick at?
At 29, and then Malachi Starks was us at 28. I think you'd flip those two.
Oh yeah.
I think the Lions would take Nick Emenwari over any safety in this draft.
If you had a chance at Nick Emenwari, that would be insane, but I'd hate to waste a first round pick on safety. Yeah, I'd hate to do that.
We have 2 top flight. We have the best safety tandem in the league.
The thing about Nick, though, is his ability to play as a small linebacker and be a box safety. I think that eventually what that would do is that would kind of take Amik Robertson's job away. So if he can play as a nickel, that'd be a giant nickel, but he can also be a small linebacker in certain, sub packages. Nick is so versatile. Hell of an athlete. I want him on the roster, obviously.
Yeah.
But to what extent are you willing to pass up on an edge rusher in the first round? I don't think that makes any sense. Therefore, what does make sense is Brad better find another pick in the top 36. Better figure out a way to move up.
Yep.
And I'm not saying move up in the first round. I mean, you could, but I think if you move back, even if you go to 32 or 31 and you trade with somebody, or you trade with the Giants or the Browns or someone, and you move back just 4 spots, you're still going to get a top flight edge. You could still have a shot at Nick, and then you package up a bunch of picks and you move back up into the early first round. I think that's what makes the most sense. If you want to, it's hard to sell fans on this, which obviously Brad doesn't care about selling the fans. It's hard to sell the fans on this. Hey, if I told you we were only going to get 4 draft picks this year, just 4, what would you think of Brad if he pretty much packaged all of our 5th, 6th, 7th round picks this year? We've got 2/3 next year. And we package up one of those, all of our day 3 picks, and we moved, our 28 to 33 or 34, and then our second pick is in the top 40, and then our third pick is in the top 60, and then we have a 4th and final pick maybe in the top 80. So you get rid of all of our day 3 picks, and then you have 4 in the top 80, 2 of which are in, at 33, 34, and then like 39 or 40 or whatever. I would still like to see 60 somehow get moved up to 50. You get 3 picks in the top 50 this year. That's all you really need. That's all this roster really needs. An edge, a DT, and a guard. If you can nail those in the top 50, top 55, you could still get Malachi Moore, pick 80, probably. I think he's a good enough safety. But then there's the whole Nick Emenwari. Like, you're not going to get him late into day 2. There's no way.
Yeah.
I think he might crack the top 20 right now.
Well, it would really bum me out if, as a draft fan, because it's looking more and more like that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to go to day 3. Day 1 and day 2 were sold out for the VIPs. And I did it last year, and I think I want to do it again this year. Go to the VIP for on location with the NFL.
Yeah, you might want to wait on purchasing that.
Day 3 of the draft.
Yeah, give me a couple of days on that. You know why?
I haven't bought it yet, but so next Wednesday is my 50th. So I want to do something really cool for my 50th birthday, and that's kind of what I thought about doing, is going and be a VIP at the draft. I put in for the inner circle. I put in to win VIP tickets, and haven't heard anything back on any of that. But like with the Lions, you had to tell them, why you deserve to be in the inner circle. You had to tell them like what was your favorite moment from last year, and mine was.
I didn't even know any of that stuff existed. I never see that stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. It showed up in my Facebook feed from the Lions. All my Lions stuff shows up in my Facebook feed, and I just clicked on it and did it.
I don't use Facebook anymore. I am so over Facebook. It's just a mess.
But if Brad had no picks on day 3, I'd be kind of disappointed that I drove all the way to Green Bay to be there for no picks by the Lions.
Yeah, I see day 3 $650 per person.
Yep. Yeah. It's about what I did last year too. I think it was $550 last year. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you what, it is world class. You get to sit in a very cushioned seat. You're right up near the stage on a platform. You when they put you in your seat, there's like a bag with all these goodies for you. Like I had a mini helmet and a backpack and stickers and coffee mugs and canned koozies and all this kind of, they give you a swag bag. And when you sit down, a waitress comes over and gives you a menu, and on the front side is all the drinks that you can get unlimited for free. You turn it over and it's unlimited food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. No matter what you want, you just tell them and they go cook it for you and they bring it back. They have a chef back there actually making you food, and it's good food, not crappy food. It's excellent, top-notch, good food.
Well, at least it was in Detroit. You don't know what you're going to get in Green Bay.
Well, it's the same thing. Same company's doing it. So, I know the seating's going to be great. I mean, I got to be 5 feet from the commissioner and all the people that were going up on stage. I mean, I was literally right there, and they have musical acts playing all the time. And it was a ton of fun in Detroit. So I'm thinking more and more that's what I want to do. I want to go do day 3. I would have purchased day 1, 2, and 3 had it been available, but they didn't send me the email, so I didn't get a chance to get it. I waited too long.
All right. We've got a few more things. I mean, obviously I can go a little bit longer. I don't know what you got planned for the day, Eric, but
yeah, I'm good.
Okay, cool. So thinking of where the Lions need some work, I kind of skipped over a whole thing I had on Levi, but I'll just save that for another day. You had something on Hutchinson, and then I want to pull up the most recent mock draft that I just saw by Daniel Jeremiah. He just put one out, I guess, last night or yesterday. Interesting pick for the Lions. So I'm going to go over that after you get through the Aiden thing.
Well, okay. Yeah, we'll do it. I have an idea for this that I could do for tomorrow. I can still do it.
Oh, if you want to wait.
Let me get down here.
It's up to you.
Yeah, let's save this for tomorrow, because I have something I can add to it. A whole bunch I could add to. I can make a whole segment and be pretty cool. I got an idea.
So I guess we were just talking about needs for the Lions in the, still some needs, maybe some positions that they're going to be looking at between now and free agency. How about your top 10 list? Let's try to keep each player real short, though, if we can. And why don't you talk about your top 10 list?
Oh, I'm trying to find it here.
Of free agents that are available. It's on page 3.
Yeah, finally getting there. There we go. I found it now. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. All right, so I looked around the interwebs and I found what I consider to be the top 10 best players at the position that are free and available in free agency right now. So number one, Cam Robinson, offensive tackle, is 29 years old from the Minnesota Vikings. He's been a reliable starter at left tackle with extensive experience. Now, he did get injured last year, missed part of the year, but he's only 29 years old, hasn't hit the 30-year mark. In his eight-season tenure with the Jacksonville Jaguars, he established him as a consistent presence on the offensive line before his trade to the Minnesota Vikings in 2024. And despite the change in scenery, Robinson is still regarded as a reliable starting left tackle. So that's the first one. What would you think about him?
Who was this?
So this is Cam Robinson. So he came from Jacksonville, came over to Minnesota for just, a few games, got hurt, and then they had to, or no, he's the guy they brought in because the other guy got hurt. And he played pretty well for him, Cam Robinson. He did an admirable job. Yeah.
So what do you think? He's at left tackle, you said?
Yeah, he's an offensive tackle.
I don't know that we really need another left tackle per se. It's not like you're going to swap out Cam Robinson for Taylor Decker with the emergence of Manu and hopefully Skipper, running it back this year as the swing tackle. I'd say they're probably fine in the tackle department.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's going to cost some money that he was not cheap.
I mean, I understand your list, though. Obviously, this is the best, available free agents. Yeah, I would say the Lions are more than likely out on Cam Robinson, but I would agree that he is probably one of the best, offensive linemen available right now.
Yes. So out of the offensive linemen, I considered him the best one that's available. And then up next, we have Amari Cooper, the wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills and formerly of the Browns and the Dallas Cowboys. Now, he is on the opposite side of 30. He is 31 years old, and he's been a prominent name in free agency discussions, but he kind of fell off for the Buffalo Bills. He got traded midseason, and he did not have the best of seasons for the Buffalo Bills, whether it was in the regular season or in the playoffs. So I'm starting to wonder if he is starting to fall off. But as of now, he's my number one wide receiver left in free agency.
So last year, he played roughly 547 snaps. No, I'm sorry. 400 snaps, roughly. And what did he finish with? He had 82 targets, 44 receptions, 547 receiving yards, 4 TDs. How many games did he get in? They need to add this. They need to add how many games the individual played to their stats here on PFF, because you have to click somewhere else to find it, which is dumb.
Well, let me see if they got it here.
They got a whole area right here that's blank. They could have that in there.
So he played in 14 games. He started 10 games. He had 587 snaps. He played in 52.4% of the snaps, 44 receptions, 547 yards, and 4 touchdowns.
I don't know where you're seeing 500 some odd snaps. I see 405.
Oh, that was between the Browns and the Bills.
Okay, I'm just looking at the Bills.
All together. Yeah, so this is all together.
Okay, so then I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know that I have his total yards then. That wouldn't make any sense. This has to be all of it. Here's what I'm going to say. I don't know how much he wants, but we just signed Tim Patrick, so I would say that we're out on Amari Cooper.
Yeah. Well, to look back a ways, you look back to 2020, he had 92 catches, 68 catches, 78 catches, 72 catches, and then last year, 44. So he just fell off a cliff, half the receptions. So something's going on with him.
Well, I think, with the Buffalo Bills last year, they just had so many options, right? They had the emergence of Hollins. Is it Mac Hollins?
Yeah, Mac Hollins.
Yeah. They had plenty of weapons. I mean, Allen was spreading that ball around. So I don't know if he really fell off, but I would say that he's not a true number one target anymore. I think he's a great number 3 or even a number 2 for most teams. But over the age of 30 for a wide receiver, it's kind of difficult. But he's got great size.
Yeah.
We have
And they're
Tim Patrick
saying
for a
his-
reason.
Yeah, they're saying his market value is about 18.9 million. So that's way out of the league
Yeah,
for
ain't no way.
the Detroit Lions. Yeah.
No way.
All right. And up next, we have one that may just interest the Detroit Lions. Defensive lineman Calais Campbell. I have actually wanted him a couple times, but
Pause.
he played with the Miami Dolphins. He's been a consistent defensive lineman with strong leadership, and at 39 years old, Calais Campbell remains a remarkable figure in the NFL. You are taking a huge risk by signing Calais Campbell. 39 years old, and I think his market value is reflective of that at 7.1 million. I don't think he even gets close to that, but he has had the production. He's always been there. He's been consistent. If you look at his stats for last year, even he played in all 17 games, 615 snaps. He played in 57.8% of the snaps, had 5 sacks, 52 tackles, 35 solo, 17 assisted, 1 fumble recovery. So, not a bad year for $7 million. That wouldn't be too bad.
Here's my quick and dirty on Calais Campbell. He will not be a Detroit Lion, number one, at least right now. Number two, he's Super Bowl, ring chasing. And I think that, like I've spoke about other guys, these are the type of players that will not enter a camp. He's going to be a couch guy that's going to stay ready. He's going to stay active. When a team needs him before a Super Bowl, before a playoff push, that's what he's going to be ready for. I highly doubt he ends up on a squad this year, and that if he gets called up at the end of the season due to injuries, then he'll go to a contender in that situation. But I don't think that he's going to make a roster right now. I could be totally wrong, but at 39 years old, I just don't see it happening. He's already been considering retirement for the last few seasons. Last year, there was talk about him joining the Lions, but I think what a lot of people forgot is once Week 18 is done, that's it. Rosters are locked. So you can't really do anything post that unless it's I think you could bring couch guys in, but that's about it. But for a player that was on a team that would need to get released or cut, it would have had to have been done before Week 18 exhausted. So I think that Calais Campbell is going to be a couch guy until the team needs him potentially at the end of this next season.
Yeah. So then we're going to move on to a guy that I actually wanted in free agency, and that's Asante Samuel Jr., the cornerback from the Los Angeles Chargers. He's a talented young cornerback. He's only 25 years old, and he's got a little bit of youth and a little bit of talent, and a lot of people covet this kid. Why he hasn't been signed yet is kind of beyond me. But if you look at his market cap, it's 11.5 million, which I think that's not too bad. Because we signed DJ Reed for 16. Some of these other guys, I mean, look at Stingley. He went for 30 million. I know Asante's not up to his level, but this would be the perfect guy. Just like you said with Calais Campbell, say there's an injury, say something happens, then this guy would be good insurance to bring in, but not until there is a catastrophic injury. That's just what I would think with the Lions with him.
Asante Samuel?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he made a lot of sense because of the meeting with Brad Holmes, but prior to, I don't know, what draft was that? Probably 2020. Obviously, he had a interest. Brad Holmes obviously had meetings with the guy, top 30 visits, pre-combine stuff, pre-draft stuff. So there was some interest, right? I mean, there's at least some experience there. He knows the guy. Asante Samuel's not going to be a Detroit Lion at this point. I think the Lions have firmly cemented what they are doing here in free agency. Asante will end up with some team somewhere, but he's probably wanting too much money at this point. And that's why he hasn't landed. I'm surprised that he hasn't landed, honestly. Matter of fact, I mean, at age 25, I mean, he'll hit a roster soon, but I'm really miffed at how he's not on a roster right now. So according to according to a recent article here, he might end up a Bengal.
Yeah.
He could end up as a Bengal. But it looks like he's seeking $45 million over 3 seasons.
Years?
Over 3 seasons.
Yeah.
So
that's a little bit more than what they were saying he's worth.
yeah, absolutely.
That's got to be the reason he's sitting. All right. And up next is a player I definitely do not see the Detroit Lions going after. Now, he's on my list, but it doesn't mean the Lions would be interested, and that is Mr. Stefon Diggs, wide receiver. He is 31 years old, and in Houston, sometimes he was good, sometimes he wasn't. Currently, he's recovering from injury. Stefon Diggs had, I think, an ACL tear, and his season was cut short by an ACL tear. And despite this injury, his established reputation as a top-tier receiver ensures he remains a prominent name. And I think that's what it is. I think it's a name. So I don't see him landing with the Lions. I just don't see it. I'm sure he'll land somewhere, but not until he is completely healed up, because his market cap is $13.7 million, and I don't think he's going to get that anymore.
Yeah, I don't remember if it's swipe left or swipe right, but I'm swiping whatever way to get him off the screen. Don't want to see him again. Stefon Diggs is not a fit in Detroit.
No, so he can be a quick one. And then we got Justin Simmons. He's a safety from the Atlanta Falcons. His market cap is $5.8 million. He's also on the wrong side of 30, so I think that is probably why he has not been signed yet. He formerly played with the Denver Broncos and the Atlanta Falcons in 2024, and he's known for his exceptional veteran know-how and leadership within the secondary. And let's see what he did last year. So statistics last year, he played in 16 games. He started 16 games, played over 1,000 snaps, 91% of the snaps for Atlanta. He had 62 tackles, 36 solo, and he had 2 interceptions. So not a completely bad season. I don't think he's completely finished, but I think he is going to have to maybe take a different role on a team. And his market cap was $5.8 million. So he should be a cheaper guy to sign in case of injury or in case we don't get a guy in the draft.
So Justin Simmons is someone that I wanted the Lions to snag last year. I don't remember what he made last year for salary, but with the Atlanta Falcons, I mean, their secondary wasn't the greatest. He actually had his worst season ever grade-wise. Prior to that, in the last 10 seasons before that, Justin Simmons has been one of the best safeties in the league, consistently into this, mid-70s for grades. I mean, year after year after year. He was into the 90s back in the 19s, or 2019. He was graded into the 90s. So he's been very consistent. He's one of the best safeties in the league still, I think, to this day. I think that he can still play at a high level. If you can bring a guy like that in for $5 million, what is Brad waiting for? I mean, obviously, I know that it's going to be tough to crack the field, and players like Justin Simmons are probably saying that, right? Their agent is saying, look, you can go to Detroit and ride the bench because that's what's going to happen. And that's probably why some of these bigger names don't come to Detroit, or some of these bigger players don't come to Detroit. You can't crack the roster. The roster's that good. So is Justin Simmons better than Kirby or better than, Brian Branch? No, but I would say this. If Kirby was traded right now, I would bring Justin Simmons in tomorrow.
There you go.
So if you are gonna trade Kirby this year because you can't afford to keep him, if that's what happens, I'm not saying that's what's happening, but if that's the play, I mean, for me, Kirby is, you could probably almost get a first-round pick out of Kirby, at least a second-round pick, probably a second and a fourth for Kirby.
Yep.
If you could get that, and then you backfill that with Justin Simmons, and then you bring Nick Emenawari in, I don't think you got worse.
Yep.
I don't think you got better, but I don't think you got worse. I know that's the wrong way to go right now when we're looking at a team that Obviously, they're bringing it all back for a reason. They want to run it back. They have confidence in these guys. I don't think Kirby is going to go anywhere, but I still have him on my list as draft day potentials because he's the only one that makes sense as a draft day potential right now. Justin Simmons, I'd bring him in a heartbeat if something happened with Kirby.
There we go. And next up is Kaiser White, linebacker. He is 29 years old from the Arizona Cardinals. After playing for the Cardinals in 2023 and 2024, following stints with the Philadelphia Eagles and Los Angeles Chargers, White has established himself as a playmaker with strong tackling abilities. And let's look and see what he did last year. Last year, he played in 17 games. He started 16, played 945 snaps, played in about 87% of the snaps. He had 3 sacks, 137 tackles, 60 of them solo, and he had 1 interception. His market value is $5.8 million. So that's not too bad. That's not really high that's about in this. I think that's less than what we're paying for Derek Barnes.
Oh yeah, it's a lot less than we're paying for Derek Barnes. So Kaiser White, again, he was someone that was on my radar last year. Honestly, in 24, he fell off, and he had a terrible season with the Cardinals. Terrible season. Like, I don't know what happened. Honestly, he's been kind of trailing off since about 2021-ish was his last great season. I'm sorry, 2022 was his last great season. 23, he found himself kind of getting by. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. And last year, he just fell off a cliff. His run defense was still good, but he was one of the worst-rated linebackers in coverage, one of the worst-rated linebackers in pass rush, and overall, he was 156 out of 189. I don't know what happened. Other than the Arizona Cardinals defense last year, they just couldn't put it together.
Yep.
So I think he was a product. I think he was a product of his surroundings. I would say that he still has some ability to play the game.
You know, when you're stuck on a team where everyone around you sucks, you have to do more. You have to make up for what everybody else is doing. And I think that's where a lot of those tackles came from.
Yeah. No, he definitely was a tackling machine. Just not so great in run defense.
Yeah. And up next, this is one that may actually interest the Detroit Lions. I've heard a lot of people talk about this guy and why hasn't Brad signed him yet? And that is Brandon Scherf. He's an offensive guard from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, he is 33 years old. He's on the wrong side of 30, but so is Kevin Zeitler. He's powerful. He's a run blocker. And he has a great high pass block win rate. He's 33 years old, and he used to play for the Washington Redskins, and then he played for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So looking at his season last year, let's take a look at it here. His market cap is $6.7 million. That's not bad at all. If you could get him for $6 million on a 1-year prove-it deal, there's your backup guard. His statistics, he played in all 17 games. He played 1,013 snaps, and he played in 98.10% of the snaps. So he did not miss many plays last year. And that's all it shows me on here for as far as statistics. How was he for PFF and stuff?
PFF, last season, overall, he was a 53rd best guard in the league. 74.5 pass blocking. He ranked in the top 20 in pass blocking. His pass blocking win rate, like you mentioned, was pretty solid. 1,000 snaps at 33 years old last year. Clearly durable. In 2023, another almost 1,100 snaps, 22, 1,100 snaps, 21, 700 snaps. Must have battled with some injury back then. But as far as who Brandon Scherf has been over the last many seasons, he's been a consistent, way better than average offensive guard, but he does play with some elite level at times. And I do like the fact that his market value, if it truly is $7 million or less, He's being compared to Graham Glasgow's contract. He's being compared to Zach Martin's contract and also comparable players. I mean, if you're really going to compare him to Zach Martin and Graham Glasgow and Laken Tomlinson and Greg Van Rotten, I think that those are pretty good comps. $7 million. I don't know why he's not in Detroit already, unless the Lions feel that Graham Glasgow is the answer. Why wouldn't you bring this guy in? So that tells me more about Manu, and I got some more information on Manu as soon as we're done with number 9 and number 10 here.
Okay, so let's get to number 9, Charles Omenihu.
Omenihu.
Omenihu. Oh, man, I can't talk today.
Hey, trust me, I do it every day.
Yeah, Charles Omenihu. He is an edge. He's 28 years old, and he's coming from the world champion Kansas City Chiefs. Well, not this year, but last year. He's a disruptive pass rusher with a history of production, but carries some risk. He's a 28-year-old edge rusher. He's shown some flashes of significant pass rushing talent throughout his career. After stints with the Houston Texans, the San Francisco 49ers, he went on to play for the Kansas City Chiefs in 2023 and 2024. So he's got one Super Bowl ring, and he must have went to one with the San Francisco 49ers also. While his ability to pressure the quarterback is undeniable, his past suspension and a recent ACL injury introduce a level of risk that teams will need to be careful of. So let's look at what he did last year. So his market cap is 11.8 million, which might be a little expensive for someone coming off an ACL. He played in 6 games last year. He started 6 games. He played 175 snaps and 54% of the snaps, 1 sack, 6 tackles, and 1 fumble. So I think he'd be kind of a risky move. So you'd probably have to get him a little cheaper. And when you look at his market value, it tells some comparable players underneath. And the number one comparable player, you want to know who it is? Marcus Davenport.
That's a contract comp or a player comp?
Contract comp, yeah. Comparable players, yeah.
Okay, I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yep.
I think when you look at a guy like Charles Omenihu, playing with the Kansas City Chiefs over the last few seasons, and let's see, who else was he with? He was only with the Chiefs, I believe. Right? Didn't the Chiefs draft him?
No. So he started off with the Houston Texans. Then he went to the San Francisco 49ers. And then the last 2 seasons he was with Kansas City. Okay.
All right. I see that now. So he's been in the league, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 9 years?
Yeah, he's been a while. He's 28.
Something like that. So his contract with the Chiefs was only 2 years, $16 million. And the fact that he's a little bit older now, 28, 29, 27 years old, he'll be 28, throughout the season. He has 6 years of experience. I can't imagine that his contract would be more expensive than $8 million a year. As a physical edge rusher, someone that can set the edge. I don't have any of his stats right now as far as his pass rush win rates. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Okay, so looking at last year, he only played in the last half of the season. Was he injured last year, Eric?
First 6 games, then he tore his ACL.
First 6 games, he tore his ACL?
Mm-hmm.
Or he was coming back from an ACL?
No, he played the first 6 games.
See, I see him playing week 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
Well, maybe it was the opposite. Yeah,
into the Super Bowl. So he must have been coming off of an ACL.
Oh, okay.
So last year must have been what I consider that throwaway season, right? You're working yourself back.
Yeah.
Look, I don't think Omenihu's a bad football player at all. Back in 2023, his pass rush grade was a 70.6, and 22 was a 75.6, and 21 was an 82.3. And again, I think that when you look at putting a player in a situation, you're putting that player in a situation that has a really good defense around you already. I think that Charles Omenihu would have been a great addition to this team this year to come into camp. I mean, he averages, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 35 pressures a year and roughly, 4 sacks a season. But he's getting, to the quarterback hurries. He's hurrying the quarterback 141 times in his career over the last 6 seasons. I mean, that's not terrible. He's getting his hand up on balls. He's batting balls down.
Yep. In 2023, he only played in 11 games, then tore his ACL, and he had 7 sacks in 11 games.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. I will say this, though. His tackling grades are terrible.
Yeah.
He's not a good tackler. He's not good in run support. So I think for that reason alone, that's why he's not in Detroit.
Yep.
I think that's the answer. All right, so last guy here.
Yeah, Dante Fowler. So this is the last guy. He's an edge. He's only 30 years old, coming from the Washington Commanders. He's an experienced pass rusher coming off double-digit sack season. So let's take a look at his numbers here. So statistic-wise, he played in all 17 games. He started 7. He had 564 snaps. He had 11 sacks, 39 tackles, 2 fumbles, and an interception. So not a bad season as far as stats go. Looking back, he had one other season back in 2019 where he had 12 sacks, but then he went 3, 5, 6, 4. So he's probably averaging 6 or 7 a year over a 10-year career, but the guy's got lots of experience. He played for Jacksonville. That's where he was drafted, and then on to the LA Rams, the Atlanta Falcons, the Dallas Cowboys, and now the Washington Commanders. His market cap is only $5.2 million. And I don't know if that's because of his age or what's going on.
Well, I will say this. It's very similar to Omenihu. He's terrible in tackling. He's below average in run defense. That's why he's not on the Lions roster right now. But what I do like is, guys like this, if they don't get signed over the next few weeks or before the draft, and these guys are kind of hanging around in the early parts of summer, you could see, a very cheap, camp ad where they come in and compete, or if the Lions somehow suffer an injury early and they need someone to come in, you could see, something like that happen. But I don't think these guys are very high on Brad's list when you look at the type of player that they've been over the last many seasons. They're just not producing at a high level. So,
like the last 2 names we talked about, both of those guys, I've seen articles that people have written, or I've seen people on social media clamoring for these guys to go to the Lions, and people just tearing their hair out. Why hasn't Brad signed these guys? They're available. And Brandon Scherf, same thing. I think out of all these 10 guys, I think Brandon Scherf makes the most sense of all of them for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I would say that he makes the most sense because the Lions, maybe they don't know exactly what's happening with the guard positions. It's going to be competition. However, I said I had some information about Giovani Manu.
There we go. See, what a setup.
Yeah. So
nice.
Looking at the guard position a little bit deeper here. Giovani Manu can play left guard, and he has played left guard. So I would say that there's more opportunity than not that we could end up seeing Giovani Manu get some opportunities at left guard this year next to Taylor Decker. And here's what I will say. If that does happen, wow, you're going to have 2 6'7" guys on the left side of your offense. The only problem is Gio's going to have to play with a very low pad level because you can't be 6'7". I mean, what's Jared Goff, 6'5"?
Mm-hmm.
So he can see over the line just fine. But for Jared to be able to get the ball to the left side of the field, especially on some of those quick hitter routes under 10 yards, your left guard can get in the way at times. So it's all about positioning, and Jared's going to have to get used to that. How tall is Graham Glasgow? I don't remember. I think he was 6'5".
Yeah, he's
6'6". He's 6'6". So, I mean, Gio's just massively wide, right? So maybe there's not much of a trade-off here with Glasgow and Manu as far as the height being a concern. But sometimes when you look at, or most times when you look at an offensive line, like you kind of go from tall to small, right? You get taller on the ends, you get a little bit shorter because it's all about the passing lanes and the vision. Doesn't mean that, I mean, if you had all 6'7" guys straight across the line, that doesn't mean it can't happen. It's just they have to be able to play with a low pad level, so the ball doesn't constantly hit guys in the back of the helmet or the shoulder pads, or, more interceptions because you're guessing and you're not seeing, because let's be real here. Like, these guys throw off a muscle memory too. You throw into that ball to Amon Ra at the same spot, 1,000 times a year, you can close your eyes and throw that ball, and it's probably going to get there. We've seen Jared do it. So, look, I want to see Gio at left guard. Right guard, probably not. I want to see Gio at left guard. I want to see him get a shot. But the fact that he has the experience at the University of British Columbia playing both guard and tackle last season out of the draft, there was conversation that some media members didn't even have them on their radar, right? We did. I know that we had Manu, a Trace. If I remember correctly, Trace was hot to trot on Manu last year. And so let's just wind it back for a second. He's very athletic, right? It's freakish athleticism. These guys that you take as projects, you're not going to find this size everywhere. A guy that's that big, that wide, that agile, can move. It's just like the Broderick Martin thing, right? You just don't find guys that size. And that's why you take some of those guys in a little bit of a risk, because the rest of your roster is pretty solid. One guy is not going to make the difference on your roster. Just not. But you put that guy in the mix of 69 other men or 68 other men, well, he could end up developing into a pretty nice, piece for you to use as a rotational piece or something. So I think that Manu is going to get a shot this year. And I want to get Paul Orazzetti on again. I just zipped off an email to see if he can come on and talk to us a little bit more about Manu's younger days, and then follow up with getting Manu back on the schedule to get him in, on the show so that we can finish that. So we'll see where that goes.
I talked to Gio at a couple of the games, and he said twice that he would come on the show.
I just got to get a hold of him. That's the problem. Yeah. I mean, I have I'm being a little shy with using the contacts, right? Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't, but I'm being a little shy with it.
Oh, so, Gio knows we're going to be calling. He knows.
Yeah. I'll try to get a hold of him. Last thing I want to go through today, just real quick, is, did I just close my sheet? I didn't mean to. The last thing I wanted to go through is Daniel Jeremiah's latest mock draft. Who does he have the Lions taken?
I don't know.
Yeah. So here we go. Let's take a peek. One sec. All right, here we go. Okay. Of course it's off. Daniel Jeremiah put out his most recent mock draft. It looks like last night. I haven't taken a peek at this yet. I normally don't. As normally my mock draft is done, but because we've had issues this week, my mock draft is yet to be. It's done. It's just we haven't done it live yet. So let's take a peek. What did he say? All right, so he's got Tennessee taking Cam. Cleveland still taking Abdul Carter. Shedeur Sanders going 3 to the Giants. Travis Hunter at 4 to the Patriots. So that really hasn't changed. Ooh, Jalon Walker. Jalon Walker getting into the top 5. Ashton Genty to the Raiders. That's interesting. I guess that so that makes sense if Shedeur Sanders is already gone. I will say this, and I've been saying this for a while now. Jackson Dart or Milroe will be drafted in the first round. I guarantee it. Clip it, note it. You can come back to this later. He will be drafted. One of those two will be drafted in the first round. Jets taking Armand Membu. I think that's a smart choice. Mason Graham goes number 8 to the Panthers. Jihad Campbell. A lot of people in the chat today talking about Jihad Campbell. Yeah, look, linebacker makes a lot of sense for the Lions. Unfortunately, it's a thin linebacker room early, and then I don't think the Lions are going to have a shot, and I don't think that they would waste a first-round pick on a linebacker again when you have this deep of a defensive end and defensive tackle draft. Will Campbell to the Chicago Bears? Please do that. Please do that. J.D. Barron to the San Francisco 49ers? I could see it. Matthew Golden to the Cowboys? Probably. Malachi Starks, one of the better safeties in the league, going to Miami? I don't know how that makes any sense. I'd have to investigate what I put on my list, but I think that the Miami Dolphins really need to protect Tua. Like, that guy is one hot breath away from another concussion ending his career. Like, you got to keep that guy upright. Tyler Warren makes a lot of sense to the Colts. Will Johnson, I don't see how he's a top 15 pick in this draft with, we'll see on Friday what he does in his pro day, but his measurables didn't stack up. Gray Zabel to the Cardinals. That would make some sense too. Kyler Murray having the same problem that the Tua had last year. Just offensive line was terrible. I mean, look at what the Lions started to do in that game. Mike Green. I'm still not as high on Mike Green, but I will say this, man. You can't deny his tape. You can't deny what he did in the bowl game. Was it the Reese's Bowl? Reese's Bowl, I think it was. Yeah. You can't deny what he did. Like, the guy, coming from Marshall, the talent level for competition, not the greatest, but played out of his mind. Colston Loveland to the Seahawks. Man, there's a mix-up going on, right? I mean, the Seahawks brought in Sam Darnold. Didn't they just bring in Cooper Kupp, too? Is that what it says right there?
Yeah.
Yep. So maybe you bring in a tight end. They're obviously going to load up offense. Yeah, I don't know if that would make sense with the guys that they just brought in. Eziraku, Donovan Eziraku. Love this kid, man. I think that he's going to have a great NFL career. This is a perfect choice for Tampa Bay. But this is where I was saying the Lions needed to get. If they want to move up and get one of the top tier edge rushers in this draft, this is the spot. It's going to have to be between 17 and 20 is where I think the Lions are going to want to end up. If they're going to move up, those are going to be the teams they trade with. The Broncos taking Amari and Hampton. How does Amari and Hampton end up in the first round? Daniel, what are we doing here? Jackson, there we go. Jackson Dart to the Steelers. That's crazy. I think the Steelers are trade bait with the Lions now. You heard it here first. I think the Lions are going to trade at 21. If they really want Jackson Dart, or, if they're looking at Milroe even, why would the Steelers want to take him at 21 when you can move back and take him at 28, stack some picks? Chargers taking McMillan. Okay. Corner for Green Bay makes sense. Ooh, I don't want to see that. Nick, I'm going to worry. How do you feel about that one, Eric, going to Vikings? That would piss me off, honestly.
Hey, listen, last year they did the same thing. They took the guy I wanted, Turner, there. So
Turner didn't have a great season last year, but I think that he was behind a lot of guys.
So maybe that would curse him by going to the Vikings. I have this gut feeling about the Vikings this year. They won 14 games last year, but they've swapped out and changed so much of that team and bought so many free agents, and now they're going to JJ instead of Sam Darnold. I just don't see it, man. I in my gut, I say 7 wins for the Vikings this year.
I wouldn't disagree with that. Houston Texans take Calvin Banks. Look at this. Who's the guy that I said was going to move up the draft boards into the first round as one of the better corners? I think that he's going to end up being one of the best corners in this draft. Trey Amos. So Daniel Jeremiah, I'm sorry, either listening in or no, I'm just kidding. The tape don't lie. I'm telling you, Trey Amos is going to be a special athlete in this league. I really like. I mean, his tape it lit a fire underneath me watching his tape. All I seen was Terry and Arnold #2, but possibly better.
Yeah.
Possibly. With his tackling. I mean, just great. Oh, 26. Oh, I thought it ended. Oh, Derek Harmon to the Ravens, but then Mykel Williams to the Lions. If Mykel Williams legit slips to the Lions, I mean, if you look, the edge rushers have disappeared in the first round. They're not many have been taken. Let's go back to the beginning. How many edge rushers have been taken? Abdul Carter, that's one. Jalon Walker, who I think is more of a linebacker. That's 2. Mike Green, that's 3. Ezra Kyle's 4. And Mykel Williams is 5. 5. So 5 edge rushers. Nick Scourton, Shamar Stewart, they're still at play.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And Landon Jackson. And the Jack Sawyer. All of them.
Yeah, Jack, look, he's a late day 2 pick. Or late second round, in my opinion. Maybe. I look, T-Rex syndrome is real. You know how I feel about the arm length.
You know what's going to happen, right?
He's not going to end up on the Lions. Don't even say it. I will lose. I will. You've never seen me blow my cap, but I will.
Okay.
I would be furious if we took look, no way.
I'm not clamoring for Jack Sawyer. But I'm going to think it's so funny if we draft him.
Could you imagine a Buckeye and a Wolverine just staring at each other before the ball snaps, like they're going to go at each other versus the ball?
Yeah, meet in the middle.
Yeah.
Meet at the quarterback. I'm going to tackle you. No, I'm going to tackle you.
Yeah, the rabbit punches in the piles. Oh, sorry, Aiden.
They don't go for the quarterback. They just tackle each other. Oh, crap.
Oh, man. All right. So, look, if Daniel Jeremiah is doing these things, from what he hears and not so much what he thinks, it's interesting to me the way that first round just went. Obviously, my first round was way different, which I'm going to do today. I'll get it done today so we can do the mock draft on a Wednesday that was supposed to be done on a Monday. But, hey, so far so good, man. New computer's holding up. Haven't seen any issues.
No.
The really good thing is I got this upgraded studio quality audio chip in this board, which I got to learn how to use, but hopefully it'll increase our audio level, more studio quality. So, all right, I don't know what y'all thought about today, but I thought it was a good show. I thought that we covered a lot of bases, and more importantly, today's Wednesday, so today's mailbag day. If you guys could please email me at mailbag@rockdown.com. I'll put together the mailbag segment for tomorrow. So your questions, your statements, your disagreements, whatever you feel you want to send it in. Any topics you want to discuss, any players you want to discuss, send it into mailbag@rockedon.com, and we will put it together. It'll be an article, and it'll also be a segment in tomorrow's show. Weekly. We're going to do that. Also, we didn't do phone lines today, but every day, for some odd reason, I get like 15 phone calls after 11 a.m. So I don't know if people are watching the show later and think that we're live, but after the show ends, I typically won't answer the show phone because anybody that has my information has my personal cell phone number. And that's what I would answer more frequently. So if you're a mod or, a member, something that, is trying to get a hold of me for a reason, you got to call my regular cell phone line or just email me. All right, Eric, your final breakdown of the day.
Man, we're all in trouble. the whole podcast is done with. This was the last one. We're all done. I'm sorry to say, this is it. The Vikings did so well in free agency by signing Jeff Okudah that I basically have nothing to say for the rest of eternity. The Vikings are the best team in the world. That's it. They're going to win every Super Bowl for the rest of eternity because they signed Jeff Okudah. No, seriously, I don't think they're going to win 7 games. But anyway, this last week was really awesome. I got to meet a lot of my Detroit Lions fans, a lot of my Rock fans, and lots of cool stuff went on. This whole week of free agency, I'm glad we got to do like a little week in review. It was kind of nice. Go back over everything and see what I thought about everything, see what you guys thought about everything. So I will be back tomorrow. I got something really cool planned for tomorrow, I think.
All right, well, let's catch up tonight. And a big shout out to Trace and her sister, obviously still recovering, going through surgery.
Yeah.
I hope you're doing well. I don't know her sister's name, but I hope you're doing well. I hope you recover and everything works out for you. Obviously, being part of the Rockhound family, we want to make sure that our well wishes are with you, and just keep on pushing, man. Just keep on pushing forward. You got it. So you'll be fine. At the end of the day, we're just about 37 days away. I don't know how many days away we are from the draft, but it's not many. It's not many. And we're going to start to hear things like this.
The Detroit Lions select Penei Sewell, tackle, Oregon.
This one was hilarious. I didn't catch this last year, or not last year. I didn't catch this when it was 22. Listen to this one. This is hilarious to me.
The Detroit Lions select Jamison Williams,
Whoa.
wide receiver, Alabama.
They called Jamison Williams Jamison Willman. How did he mess that one up?
Jamison Williams.
Willman, yeah. Are you able to hear the sounds today?
Yeah, I heard all that. So
Okay.
You need to play a video. If you can play a video and I can hear it, man, we are in like Flynn.
Well, there's a few ways that I can go about doing that. It's, I need to buy the new Roadcaster. I think it would work out better that way. But there's a switch somewhere that I'll figure out. But we'll get it figured out. All right, y'all have a wonderful day. FTB is F the Bears. Now that I've got a computer and I can work with multiple screens again, I'll get hammering on raffles for the draft. I'll get hammering on the merch and getting merch samples ordered so that we can actually get some things going out to people that you guys have been asking for. So I appreciate y'all. You have a wonderful day. Eric, good to see you back in the saddle. We'll catch y'all tomorrow morning on the Rise and Grind Morning Show. That's it for today, man. Go Detroit Lions. I don't have an ending. I just remember I said this morning, hopefully I didn't forget something. Yep, I forgot something. So we're just going to roll with this. Here we go.
Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby!